and in your own skin. And this gives you an opportunity to enjoy the journey of imagination, beauty, integration, and encourages a sense of gratitude for yourself, for others, for music, and for movement. Classes are in session and all are well. And if you would like to have me on as a guest on your podcast and would like to be a guest on my podcast, please do let me know, as I am also collecting new interviews for the upcoming. And for information on any of the things that I have mentioned, if you would like to participate in, or to purchase, or to just join the community, please send me an email at growthandgracemindset@gmail.com. After all of the logistics are out of the way, enjoy the show. Welcome to the Growth, Grace, and Gratitude podcast, where we talk about all things mastering self growth, finding truth, and all on the journey of evolution through the guidance of our experts. And today we will focus a little bit about improving conversation and mastering communication and conversation to gain self confidence with our very special guest, Dr. Jeff Bogaczyk. And he received a Master of Arts in Leadership and Liberal Studies and has a PhD. And for the past 12 years, he has served in educational leadership and is currently the head of school for Christian Life School in Kenosha, Wisconsin. And he also
Mhm.
serves as the book review editor for the academic journal Explorations in Media Ecology, as an at large board member for the Media Ecology Association, and has been teaching communication, persuasion, and leadership on his social media platform, where he has gained a following of over 150,000 people across all channels. And in his leisure time, he enjoys hiking, traveling, and spending time with his family. So, what a beautiful introduction, and I'm so excited to
Mhm.
the podcast. So, welcome.
Thank you very much. You are very kind, and I appreciate the opportunity to be on with you. Thanks for reaching out. I'm looking forward to it.
Yes, for sure. And you have a really great page over on Instagram, Mind for Life, and you share
Hmm.
really great tips, kind of where you guide people in the realms of conversation and also persuasion. And I thought it's a really interesting topic to get into because I remember when I was doing my undergrad, I was really interested in law. So I did pre law and I took a class that was kind of like about like mastering the art of effective communication. And
Hmm.
it was like politics was involved as well. So it was very like, like deep, and it was very interesting. And the whole idea of it for me, that I learned that communication is kind of like there's a purpose to inspire some kind of positive change. And until I figured that out, I was kind of going around in circles. And you can tell me if that's also like your perspective, but I feel like people who have a lack in being able to communicate effectively is that they kind of aren't able to come to a solution on what the purpose is of communicating.
Right. Yeah, I think so. My PhD is in rhetoric, and rhetoric is really, you might call it, to shorten it up, the art of persuasive communication. Aristotle defined rhetoric as finding the best means of persuasion in whatever the situation might be. And to your point, our communication, when we communicate with other people or when we communicate with ourselves, even, there is to an extent always a persuasive element. One of the questions that was regularly brought up in our in the classes when I was in my doctoral program was is rhetoric everything when it comes to communication, or is it just something? In other words, are our communication interactions with other people always persuasive in the sense that we are trying to motivate or persuade or convince somebody of something, whether it be what we're going to have for dinner tonight, what movie we're going to go see, what we're going to do after work, who's going to do the work on the project or whatever. And or is it just something? And sometimes we just share information. But the more I think about communication and my experiences, even within myself, a lot of the narratives that we speak to ourselves, that internal, you might call it a monologue, I would call it a dialogue. We call it intrapersonal communication. Is the communication that we have ourselves, and we talk to ourselves more than anybody. We're talking to ourselves all day long. And a lot of it is trying to persuade ourselves, to motivate ourselves, to do things, to get our jobs done, to, whatever it may be. So, communication is such a fascinating subject. I mean, to think that here we are speaking these sounds out that they sound like words to us, but to people in different languages, they're just sounds, but yet they carry with it meaning. And the fact that I can say something and you can hear it and then understand it and it makes sense to you, and that we can have this dialogue back and forth, to me it's fascinating. It's fascinating. And I love talking about it. But like you said, there is always a persuasive element to a certain extent in what we say, what we communicate, and how we go about doing that.
Yes, 100%. It's so true. And it's so interesting how you mentioned the philosopher. Today's actually World Philosophy Day. And I thought it was
Oh,
interesting how, like, they're like the three C's. That's like being compassionate, having that curiosity, and being courageous. And that can all be applied to the art of persuasion and communication, because it's like how we inspire others through the way we speak and interact. It would help if we are curious and if we have that kind of compassion and we're courageous enough to make a stance or make a statement that might appear a different narrative or might carry a different kind of tone or frequency where others might be triggered or
right.
sensitive. So it's like there are so many different kind of ideas to persuade. And I actually wrote a quote from one of the founding fathers of USA, Benjamin Franklin, and he said, "If you would persuade, you must appeal to interest rather than intellect." And I thought,
Mhm.
wow, that's super interesting, because that also kind of means that to communicate to others and even to ourselves, it's like we are the teacher. So we're kind of teaching ourselves and others some kind of value. And if we are expressing through integrity and through like a moral compass, then we are on the right track, and we're not appealing to that kind of like manipulation tactic. Can you talk a little bit about, like, is there manipulation involved in persuading?
Yeah, I think there is. To your point, I think that's what makes a good con man effective. Is a good con man is able to utilize for um, evil purposes, shall we say, the three things that you just mentioned. They're able to show compassion towards you, that they are able to show empathy towards you. They do it to get what they want. They are able to be curious. In other words, they're willing to listen to you and to make you sound important and to make you feel important. That's where that curiosity comes in, is because we really are genuinely interested in what you have to say. And when people are interested into us, I think, it's a fact of what makes a good conversationalist, is that they're interested in the other person and they're not just trying to be interesting and talk about themselves all the time. So when someone is genuinely interested, when they're genuinely listening to you, when they are laughing and enjoying the conversation, it makes you feel special. It makes you feel important. You start to like that person more. And then there's the other aspect that you mentioned of helping someone to appealing to someone's interests, giving them what they want. Sometimes that's a psychological or an emotional validation for the other person. But good con men do that. So I think there is an ethical component to it. Why are you doing all of these things? Because these things can be very persuasive for someone else. They can help you to get things that you want, but there is a way that that's done, and it's done in a non-ethical way. So I think that's where you kind of have to watch out. Good, there are body language signs that if you are attuned to them, you can tell something doesn't match up with their body language and what they're doing and what they're saying. And when you get that mixed message from someone, there should be an intuitive a red flag that goes up, like am I getting conned here? Is this person legitimate? And a lot of times when we are made to feel special, when someone is appealing to our interests, when someone is compassionate towards us and showing empathy, we naturally want to be naive and believe that person, and many times we can be easily persuaded. So I think there is an ethical part of that, and I think it's important for us to be careful. And to be honest, I don't know where the balance is, because on one hand, you want to be trusting of people. You want to trust them. You want to believe the best of them. But on the other hand, people are not always so good. You know.
That's fair. Yes, it's very true. We do have different kinds of people with different narcissistic tendencies, and it is a really good lesson, especially for so many of our listeners and for people who are like empaths and they
Hmm.
are in tune with their sensitivity, and they do kind of care about helping others and showing kindness. And they, when somebody, has a charm to them in communication and persuasion, of course, it's so easy to listen, to
You're right.
respond.
Yeah, you're 100% right. And I think those type of people are more prone to being deceived, because those type of people are people who have a genuine empathy and care and compassion towards other people. And so they, because that's the natural, makeup of their personality, they tend to think that everybody else is the same way, and they're not.
Exactly.
So you got to be careful. It's a beautiful thing to have people that are compassionate and caring and empathetic and are naturally that way. They're just naturally nice and kind. But unfortunately, those people, not everyone's like that. And people that are, you know, um, not good will take advantage of that. And they use it, like you said earlier, to manipulate.
Yes, for sure. I actually had that experience when I was younger, and it's very difficult to see the difference of persuasion through the lens of positivity. Well, now I can see that very clearly, but before, when I had no experience with the negative part of it, I wasn't even aware. But slowly I became aware that something was off, but I couldn't put my finger on
Right.
it. I just
Mm-hmm.
felt that, you know, the conversation was always like perfection. So they have great
Mm-hmm.
skills. They have a great skill in persuasion and communication.
Right.
So it's interesting how there's such an ease to that. So you're right away inspired because you feel like, wow, what an honor to be a witness to somebody being able to communicate in this grand way. And later I learned that's what kind of like a grandiose narcissist was expressing and
Right.
embodying at that time, but I didn't realize that. But I think later on I took notice of staying in that same range, talking in that same tone, and not
Mm-hmm.
being compassionate to me later on. So maybe in the beginning there was compassion, and later on it kind of stopped. So I think for people who are trying to learn about being manipulated, it's that over time the compassion kind of goes away. And what I had to do, I had to
Right.
actually learn to stand up for myself. So I learned all about how to have boundaries, how to communicate with boundaries as well. And I think that's also kind of a positive, beneficial persuasion kind of communication when you are putting boundaries down and you're able to
Hmm.
just, say no sometimes. And I think, like, especially for people who are like entrepreneurs and who are in the workplace, what do you think some ideal positive communication skills are that they should have in their tool belt to help with positive communication and persuasion?
Good question. Number one, I think people that are entrepreneurs in the workplace, the number one critical skill for communication is to articulate a compelling vision for the other person. So, to be able to, like you said, appeal to someone's interests. If you are selling a product, if you are selling a service, you need to be able to craft a vision of how that product or that service is going to meet the needs, meet the interests, and solve the problems of your client. If you can't do that and do it well, you might call that sales, but really sales is what? It's persuasive communication. So I think you've got to be able to do that well. Along with that is the art of negotiation. And so, what is negotiation? It is trying to persuade the other person to make the deal with you, right? You are trying to persuade them, appealing to their interests, appealing to a solution to their problems that you are providing. So that sales piece, that negotiation piece, I would put it under the umbrella of crafting a compelling vision. And people are inspired by stories. People are inspired and motivated by emotional language. The three aspects of persuasion, according to Aristotle, are ethos, pathos, and logos. So, logos is the persuasive logical argument. This is where you would use the data, you would use the charts, you would use the research to show why your product or service is good. The ethos is about your credibility as a person selling the product. Why are you credible? Why should I believe you? What Who are you and what have you done that I should think that you are not just manipulating me and spinning a lie, but that you're someone I can really trust and believe in? And then the pathos is the appeal to the emotions. Those are the stories, of success and failure to success and crafting a compelling narrative. So I think an entrepreneur needs to possess that, number one. And then I would say conflict management and assertiveness. They, to me, go hand in hand. Being able to, like you said, communicate your boundaries, not let people walk all over you, being able to assert yourself. That means communicating your thoughts and emotions confidently and with skill. So I think that if I were to put two communication skills that an entrepreneur needs, number one would be crafting a compelling vision, and number two would be that assertiveness, conflict management, and relationship management piece.
Fantastic. Yes, that is so great. Those are great tips. And I remember when I first started one of my businesses to do coaching, I started doing mindful coaching when I was on my own like personal journey of healing.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't even intentionally go out and do that. It kind of found me because, like you mentioned about storytelling and emotional connection, I just felt really comfortable sharing like storytelling parts of my journey, my emotions. I was sharing parts of my journaling, my diary. And over time, people, I guess, were gravitated to that authenticity, and I felt so inspired to continue and to continue sharing and expressing. And I think it's really interesting how this is how we kind of connect to our humanity, and
Right.
it's kind of at the core so simple when you think about it, because the idea of persuasion is simply having the having that guts and that moral character to have faith in your story or whatever you
Hmm.
are sharing or whatever product you have, and to just put it out there. And that consistent kind of exposure will hopefully be that persuasion.
Right. Well, it's like you said, authenticity and transparency are very persuasive. When people trust you, that's part of that ethos. It's about who you are and your character. Can I believe you? Can I believe what
Right.
you're telling me? And when you are transparent and when you are open and when people can sense you're being authentic, they like you, they lean into you, they believe you. And again, there's a negative side to that because con men or con women know how to tell fake stories that sound credible, that sound authentic, that bring someone over and engenders empathy from the other person, and they use that to manipulate and get what they want. So I am 100% a believer in being transparent and open with people and being authentic. I think that's the best way to relate to people, and I think, that is persuasive, like you said. And it's those types of things that when you do them over and over and people start to hear that, they are drawn to you. So it's great to hear that that's how that got started for you in your coaching program.
Yes, yes, totally. And I also learned more about the idea of like being persuasive. It's also going to affect people in different ways. There are people who are more on the agreeable side and people who are on the disagreeable side. So, for
Hmm.
example, when people are more self aware and they've experienced the trauma and they were able to put up their boundaries, now they're going to be more disagreeable in nature. So, if you're trying to persuade somebody who is more disagreeable, it's going to be a little bit challenging if you are not authentic, if you are not truly transparent.
Exactly.
They're going to be able to see that, right?
You're 100% right. That is the way to break through it because people that are disagreeable, disagreeable many times because they just don't trust you. They don't believe you.
Yes.
They've maybe been burned in the past, and their barriers are up. For how close they're going to let, because the people that are disagreeable, sometimes they're just disagreeable because they're mad at something or mad at the world. But sometimes they're disagreeable, with people. But there are people that they're very agreeable with, people that they're close to, people that they love, that they open up to, that they believe in, and that they trust. And so, to persuade someone who's disagreeable, really, it's about finding ways to get them to trust you. And those people sometimes don't easily open up the doors of trust.
Yes, for sure. And especially
Yeah.
for people who are like more on the shy side, what kind of tips do you think that they should focus on to begin the process of just communication in general?
Hmm. So there's always some strategies, I think, for people that are shy. I love the definition when it comes to introvert versus extrovert, how you find that you get energy. Extroverted people typically get their energy from being around others and engaging in a lot of relationships. For an introvert, that is not an energy builder, it is an energy drainer. And introverts get energy and feel fulfilled and find greater, maybe you could say it, meaning in life by being by themselves or around a small group of people who they trust. So I don't know that there's a way to particularly change the way that your personality gravitates when it comes to getting energy. However, I know that introverted people can get skills and develop tactics and techniques to be more extroverted. The term that people are using now is ambivert, which is someone that can go between introvert and extrovert. Ambiverts to me are typically introverts who have learned the skills, learned the tactics, learned the techniques to be able to operate in the world where they need to be extroverted, but yet they don't love it over there. They do what they have to do to be over there. They can find ways to engage and be happy and find, enjoy it. But so, the things that I think are important there is number one, courage. I always think courage is the biggest one because shy people are typically afraid to engage in conversation. And the first step is the step of courage to say, I'm going to walk up to somebody and say something. And most people that are shy don't want to do that. You just kind of want to stay there. But, how do you get over that? You just have to say, I'm going to do it. I'm going to have to have the courage to do it. And the other side of it is maybe examining, what am I afraid of? Am I afraid if I go ask this person, they're going to say, I don't want to talk to you? Okay. I mean, that's okay. But like the second thing I think would be learning how to ask good open-ended questions that allow the other person to talk about themselves. If one of the things that I've said in one of my videos is the person who controls the conversation is not the person who talks the most. It is the person who knows how to ask good questions. And I will say this, you will get anybody to love talking to you if you can help them to talk about themselves, because everybody loves talking about themselves. So if you can ask people questions that help them to talk about themselves. So how did you get into podcasting, Ari? So how did you start your coaching business? So how did you get to where you are? You help them to tell the story. And by doing that, you say, we are here now. How did it come to this? How did you get here? How did you get to this place? They'll talk forever. Usually people will talk forever if you can ask those questions in an open-ended way. And the open-ended questions typically start with what, how, or why. What did you do to start your coaching business? How did you get into coaching? Why are you into coaching? Those open up the dialogue and give people room to speak and to add a lot. Versus, do you like podcasting? That's a close-ended question because you could just say yes. It can be answered with with one word, yes or no. And so learning how to ask good open-ended questions. Number two, learning how to listen to what other people are saying when they are speaking. Most of the time, we're not listening to the other person and listening for what they're saying so that we can encourage them to say more, to engage in conversation. We're just kind of thinking about what's the next thing I'm going to say. So really learning how to listen to the other person, to share back to them. Oh, so you got into podcasting by your friend was doing it? Is that what, and so then you can clarify. So those techniques I think are very, very helpful for someone who is shy. Have courage, learn how to ask great questions, learn how to listen to what the other person is saying so that you can ask better questions, and then learn how to learn how to be interested in the other person. Somebody gave this quote. It's the best way to make friends is to be interested instead of trying to be interesting. And so if you can genuinely be interested in the other person rather than trying to put up all of the things that you do or how smart you are, what these are the things that I've done, you will be able to talk to people forever and they will love talking to you and they're going to go, boy, that person, I'm going to talk to them again next time you meet. So I think those are some techniques a shy person or an introvert can use to learn how to move more into that realm. But again, I said, I don't think a shy or introverted person is ever going to change the way that they get energy. However, we live in a social world, and there is something about, One philosopher used the term being with someone else or being with one another, that there is an aspect of being a human that is being with someone else. And those relationships, I think, are important for meaning in our own lives. And you shouldn't just try to be by yourself all the time. It is good for you to be in relationship with people, even if it's only a small group.
Yes, such great tips. Yes, I love it. And it's so true about you mentioning like conscious listening. We have a lot to learn as humanity about conscious listening because, like you mentioned before, we totally want to listen just to respond, to have an answer in our back pocket.
Right.
And the art of conscious listening is so deeply spiritual because it has to kind of bring you back to the present moment, and it brings you into all of your realities that you might want to talk about, or you might kind of prepare to be defensive. And a lot of people are like that, especially when they have the same relationships that perhaps they don't give 100% of their time or effort. And those are kind of, I experienced a few narcissistic personalities as well,
Hmm.
that they're not able to consciously listen to have an
Right.
authentic conversation. And I feel like through conscious listening, we're able to respond with such a greater kind of ease, where communication ends up just flowing so much more
Right.
gracefully. And that's where solutions can happen
Hmm.
faster. That's where relationships deepen, intimacy deepens. You reach new heights of understanding, of compatibility, of compassion. And it's a really great thing to invest in, even listening to yourself, because it's like we have so many thoughts, and when we speak to ourselves,
Right.
we don't have that conscious listening. Sometimes we kind of just like critique ourselves. So it is very, it's like a wonderful topic, and especially it's going to build up confidence. It's going to help you become more confident through the art of communication in general.
Yeah. No, I was not a great. I was a very pretty super introverted kid, and I had to learn. I learned these things, and if you learn the skills and you understand how, I'm sorry if you hear my dog barking over there. I don't know what's she's barking about something, but if you learn the skills on how to engage someone in a conversation, how to ask great questions, how to listen so that you can ask other questions. You you can really make someone feel good about themselves. You can make them feel good about talking to you, and like you said, it does inspire great confidence. And empathic people, there's a natural, like you said, conscious listening because they just have that feeling. So for those people in your audience that are like that, that's naturally there. The piece that you then need to add on to that is how to ask great questions. You can listen and you can say, boy, it sounds like you feel, sharing back how someone feels. It sounds like you feel really frustrated about that. Talk about that a little bit more. How did that happen? And when you do that, you can pair up the empathetic part of it, the conscious listening part of it, with asking great questions. You won't have any problem. That's a skill that can be learned, but again, as I said, it may not fix the energy issue.
Yeah, your dog agrees 100%.
Yeah. I don't know what she's barking at out there because nobody's here. Shh.
Wants to participate and communicate as well. Totally
She's
understand.
good. She's saying something. We're not in
Very
the same language,
persuasively.
right? It's true. It's true.
That's fantastic. And what is your favorite part about this whole art of persuasion and communication? What is your favorite part about this topic?
I think for me, again, I think communication is just fascinating. It's a fascinating field to figure it out. I think to me, communication is how we negotiate the most important relationships we have in the world. Our relationships with our loved ones, for those that are close to us, for our spouse or partners. Those everything in those relationships comes through communication. That is the relationship. Okay, there is no relationship without communication. Communication is, talk about it in terms of it's the medium through which relationship is. You might even say relationship is communication. So, and I believe that it's important for us to be engaged with other people in the world. We're not here just to be by ourselves and do our own thing. There is great meaning and fulfillment in having great relationships with people. And in order to have great relationships, I think you have to have great communication. And we all struggle in certain areas at certain times. Nobody's perfect. You can know all of these things, but in moments of frustration or moments of anger or moments of conflict, you don't always practice good communication practices. And so, it's constantly a growth for all of us. I think it's important in our world. I believe we need to talk more and dialogue more. We're being polarized by the technologies that we have that are pushing us farther and farther away. We have difficulty hearing and understanding where other people are coming from. And instead of really trying to listen and understand, we just want to shout and yell at people and try to get them to do what we want them to do. But persuasion, like you said, no is a persuasive word. When you assert your boundaries, that's persuasive because you're, in a sense, forcing someone to do something that you want them to do, or don't want them to do, meaning cross your boundaries. So, communication is relationship, and I think relationships are important. So we have to persuade. You can't just force. I don't believe in like force. And, if you take it down that road, it just becomes who's the strongest and most powerful, not who has the best ideas or best thoughts. And I believe in a world where we can disagree, but we need to talk, dialogue, and try to persuade one another on what are the best outcomes for all of us.
Beautiful. I love that. Yes, such a beautiful closing message. And where can
Okay.
people connect with you and see your inspiring content?
Well, yeah. So, like you said, I'm on Instagram. It's Mind for Life. If you're on TikTok, it's Mind for Life there. I have a website, mindforlife.org, and I'm about to actually publish my first digital resource, which is called How to Respond. And so, I've been doing just a quick short journey. I've been doing videos since I started back in January, with an Instagram account of 300 people, and I just started posting these videos on there about how to be better at persuasion, how to be better at communication. That channel grew to 157,000 now. I started back in probably March or April with the TikTok account, and that has grown to 90,000 on TikTok. And I don't know that I'm doing anything special, but just helping people out. But I will say that it's really humbling to me to know that the videos that I've put out have been watched by millions of people. It was a couple of videos have gone pretty good for me, but that means to me that people are looking for a resource. You can't always go watch videos. So I've taken all of the videos that I've done so far on communication and put them into a digital resource. It's called How to Respond, how to have critical conversations in your life. And it is responding to all of these difficult and unique situations that people will find themselves in. I'm hoping to have it available for Black Friday coming up here. And so you'll be able to find that on my website. And I will also have a link to it when it's ready on Instagram. So that's the best way to connect with me.
Perfect. Something we should all have in our tool belt.
Yeah. And you know what? I'm going to send you a free copy when it gets ready. So
Oh,
as a
thank you
thank
so
you.
much. I
Yep.
love it.
I'll need the email though. I need your email.
Yes, totally. Okay, thank
Good.
you so much for coming on the podcast.
Thank you, Ari. It has been a pleasure to be with you and appreciate your time today.